You've decided you're ready to become a parent, and suddenly you're overwhelmed with people who feel they have the right to inform you on the correct way to conceive, give birth, what fears you should have, and the proper way to parent. How do you filter through the opinions? How do you know what's trustworthy information and what's a myth or just plain outdated? Welcome to the Birthies podcast. Join your host Michelle Smith and her guests as they cut through the noise and fear by sharing valuable tips, tools, and proven methods that help you connect with your own inner wisdom as you navigate the sacred journey that is pregnancy, birth, and parenthood in a more relaxed and confident manner. This podcast does not constitute, nor is it intended, as medical advice.
Hello, Birthies families. Welcome to this heartfelt space. I'm your host, Michelle Smith, and I am so grateful you are here. In this episode, I am incredibly honored to have a conversation with one of our Central Florida doulas, Aelis Rivera. Aelis has been and truly is an advocate for those that are underserved. She makes a stand where most are afraid to tread, and our birth community is very blessed to have her. Aelis is a very proud queer birth doula, birth assistant, childbirth educator, and owner of Caridad Birth Doula Services. As a survivor of both child abuse, rape, and domestic violence, she has been a child abuse, domestic violence, and LGBTQIA+ advocate for over 16 years. Aelis believes that it is extremely important to use your voice for those who are fearful or apprehensive to speak their truth. Therefore, she is excited to combine her advocacy work with her love of birth by certifying as a full spectrum doula with Birthing Advocacy Doula 1 trainings under Sabia Wade. She is also collaborating with a local expert to create much-needed workshops for birth professionals regarding domestic abuse. Welcome, Aelis, to the Birthies podcast. I am so grateful to have you here with me today.
Thank you so much, Michelle. The pleasure is all mine. It's an honor to be asked to be on this podcast. It means so very much to me.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. I've been watching your incredible work, and I just thought I want to have her on my podcast to talk about these really, really vital things. And so I was so grateful when you agreed to be on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So could you share a little bit with the Birthies families and the listeners what brought you to your birth work?
So I am very proud to say I am a queer doula. I am a birth assistant, and I am a childbirth educator. I put an emphasis on being a queer doula because a lot of times our families are kind of pushed to the side, not understood. The language inclusivity when it comes to filling out paperwork is subpar. You know, you will go into a OBGYN or you will go into a birthing center and the paperwork will say mother, father, not really taking into consideration that it could be a trans family, it can be a surrogate birth, it could be an adoption birth. And I think all birthing families should be able to enter whatever space they're going into and have the option and the respect of having that space where they are represented. I have been married for close to 9 years with my beautiful wife. We have 4 amazing creations that we were granted on this earth. I birthed 3, my wife birthed 1, but they are ours collectively. We are pretty much a gender fluid, queer, humongous family. And we love it. You know, I've been out for a million years already, and I still sometimes I'm not quite sure on all the terminology. So I turn to my boys and I'm like, hey, is this correct? You know, because I always want to be completely inclusive when I speak or when I write a post or something. And I'll get corrected and like, no, mom, this doesn't go like that. Switch it to this or switch it to that. And I'm like, okay, great, thank you.
Yes, I do that with my 21-year-old as well.
Mm-hmm. It's my 21-year-old too.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And she's just so compassionate and
Mm-hmm.
really does her best to listen and understand. And God, I wish more people took the time to do what she does, to
Yes.
listen to other people's perspectives. And
Mm-hmm.
my daughter identifies as queer. That's the
Mm-hmm.
term that she's chosen. And I'm grateful. It feels like things are a tiny bit easier for her than I think it was for you, for my dear friends.
Mm-hmm.
I think times are becoming more inclusive, but I know not everyone is that way.
Mm-hmm. No, they're not, you know, especially you would think this day and age, but it's really not. You have people saying to you like, oh, you know, lesbian families have it a little easier because of XYZ or, you know, or different quirks or different things. And it's like, that's not right. Funny examples when we moved from the Bronx. I was born and raised in the Bronx. When my wife and I married, we moved to Jersey. In Jersey, same-sex couple marriage was not legal yet, but we had gotten married in New York.
Mm.
So I went to change over. As a matter of fact, today marks 8 years that I changed my name over to her name.
Oh,
And when we went over to Social Security, they kept looking at our marriage certificate, the woman at the window. And she's like, I don't understand why you want to change your name. And I'm like, because we're married. And she's like, well, we don't really do change of names for civil unions. I'm like, no, it's not a civil union. We are legally married. And the supervisor and the manager and we're sitting there like, really? I don't see anyone else being given a hard time here, changing their name over. Why is it such a big deal? If I'm giving you something that says New York State, legal document, why is it not just taken at face value and respected? And finally, after 25, 35 minutes being there, they changed it. You know, and of course we laughed it off, but we laughed it off with frustration because it was very rude, you know?
mm-hmm.
Straight couples or hetero couples, when they introduce their partners, they always say, this is my husband, this is my wife. But we found a lot of times, hi, nice to meet you, this is my wife. And they were like, you meet your partner? No, she's my wife, you know? And I take a lot of pride in saying that because we did get married on the cusp of when it became legal.
Yeah, I remember someone in my families got married and they were so excited.
Yeah.
We're married.
Yes.
We're married. And look on our check.
Yep.
It has my married name on it.
Mm-hmm.
I still remember that. I have goosebumps as I'm saying
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
It's a big deal. It was a very big deal for us. And more so since we had children. If I needed to take the youngest to the doctor's office or she needed to take the older ones to the doctor's office without it being a big deal, like we're the parents, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, or even going into a hospital setting, if heaven forbid she was ill, I wouldn't be able to get any information or make any choices for her because of the legality.
Mm-hmm.
But now we have that right. So it was very important for us to make that change. When I lived in the Bronx, as I have shared with you before, I'm a child abuse, child rape, domestic violence survivor. And I knew at a young age, being a child abuse survivor, that I wanted to help other kids who had gone through what I went through. So originally I wanted to be like a child psychologist or a child therapist, child trauma therapist. I wanted to join the Peace Corps. I wanted to do all these things to help other people and help people who I know felt the pain that I had felt, and just be of service and to just help those who didn't or could not voice out what they were feeling.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's always that shroud of secrecy in families, right?
Right.
There's always okay, we understand what happened to you, but like, let's not talk about it because we don't want to embarrass anybody. We don't want that shame on us. So what are you teaching that child? You're teaching that child that what that child has been through is a source of shame.
Mm-hmm.
So that child once again falls into that, oh my gosh, I finally divulged my secret, but now I'm hidden into secrecy of shame.
Yes, there's so many of my clients have shared with me as we're working together that their families didn't believe them.
Yes.
One mama we've been working with recently, her mother refused to believe it.
Yes.
And that's a whole nother layer right there.
Yeah. Yep. And that's very sad. That's very disheartening for a victim to be told, I don't believe you.
Mm-hmm.
Or I believe you, but
Right.
let's not tell anyone.
Right.
Or I'm sorry, but I can't get you the therapy that you require and that you need, because then people are going to know this full story. And then what happens?
Mm-hmm.
Those people wind up being in domestic violence relationships,
Mm-hmm.
because you have no sense of boundaries. You have no sense of, this is not okay for this to happen to me,
Right.
or it doesn't matter if this happens to me, and if I tell somebody, somebody's not going to believe me anyway, or maybe this is my fault. You know, it's a full conundrum of a vicious, vicious cycle.
Yeah.
And most abusers are predators. All abusers are predators. So a predator knows if someone is in distress. And that's who they go after. They go after the person who is in distress, who has had any type of trauma. And they're groomed and they're made to feel and things like, I love you and I'm the only one that loves you. And you went through this and I love you anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So that is another level of the whole abuse.
Right.
You know?
Right. Will you say that again so that it can just really sink in? Because it's significant what you just said.
So predators will sit there and they will groom their victims. Okay. And I use victims and survivor in two different levels. To me, I think even if you are going through it, you are very much a survivor because you're surviving on a daily basis.
Exactly.
So they will sit there and they will tell their victim, their survivor, hey, I love you no matter what you've been through. So what does that make that person think? Sheesh, I'm lucky that this person loves me because maybe nobody else will,
Mm-hmm.
which is a completely false narrative. But that is what's put in the head of the person, because a lot of times people who have suffered abuse suffer abuse on many different levels, going from the mental, the physical, the spiritual, to the ultimate physical.
Mm-hmm.
So all those, you know, it's like peeling an onion, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And everything is pulled away and everything is, you know, they're sitting there like, I don't know, maybe I don't deserve to be loved. And let me just hold on to this person because no one else in this world is going to love me. So I should be happy and I should be grateful that this person loves me, which is completely false. No one should be made to feel less than anyone else. And love is not pain. Love is not abuse.
Yes, but that's where it gets confused.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it does. And that was my main goal as a young girl growing up. I was like, I need to make a change. And in my late teenage years, like a lot of my friends were like, why do you want to be a child psychologist? I went to an all-girls high school in the Bronx, and all of us had really like high goals and things that we wanted to do. A lot of my sisters from high school, St. Catherine Academy, proud alumni. They're teachers and doctors and lawyers and therapists and social workers. And a lot of them had their stories that we didn't find out until we were later in life when we were adults. I didn't get to continue my path because I had my first child at 20, and my mother had passed away. So I couldn't continue with school.
That's a lot. Oh my gosh.
It is a lot. I was in the middle of a very abusive relationship, and I was about to leave. I had divulged to my mother that I was being abused, and I was about to leave, and 2 weeks later she passed away.
Oh my gosh.
And that was another thing. She was just like, let's not tell anyone, because I don't want your brother to kill this person. And I don't want anybody else in the family to get involved. But that is typical. That's very cultural. Like, we don't want anybody to get involved. And that kind of spirals you even into more of staying. You don't want anybody involved. You don't want anybody else to get hurt because you're leaving. Leaving an abusive relationship is the scariest part of being in the relationship.
It sure is.
Because you don't know what in the world this person is going to do. And what happens, then they start to financially abuse, because that's a big, big part of abuse.
Yeah.
When you're in an abusive relationship, they run up your credit. They spend all your money. So you leave and you have no credit score. If you have work experience, that's great. But sometimes they don't allow you to work.
Right.
But how are you supposed to get at a place to live if your credit score is in the toilet and you don't have a penny to your name?
Yeah.
They're going to fight you for custody. So once I was able to remove myself, numerology is very interesting, right? I was abused 4 times as a child. And as an adult, I was in 4 abusive relationships, as an adult. And it took me that last time to say, okay, Aelis, no more. Like, what are you doing? And it took many years of self-healing, self-realization. And my biggest thing is always to tell my friends when they're coming to me, or my colleagues or whatever, and they come to me with a scenario of their own, and they're like, I can't do this, and this is impossible, and so on and so forth. I tell them, do me a favor and just take a moment and let's switch this around. And if it was someone else coming to you and telling you the same exact thing, what would you tell that person?
Yeah. Yeah.
You would tell that person, you can do this. You are strong. You are mighty. You are a freaking warrior. You can get out of this situation. You can move on. Anything is possible. This too shall pass. And once we switch that narrative, and once we switch that conversation in our mind, we start standing in our power. Is it scary? Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
But is it worth it? Absolutely.
It is.
I spent 22 plus years in corporate America doing accounting to support my family.
Oh, that's so funny. In high school, I wanted to be an accountant. And I'm a birth worker.
My wife is still doing accounting. She loves it. More power to her. I was working for a really big company up north, making really nice money. I worked from home for quite a while because I had developed fibromyalgia. Oh. And autoimmune diseases come from trauma in our bodies.
Yeah.
Unresolved trauma that stays in our bodies. So that really put me on the cusp of really going through this healing process. But when I did live in the Bronx, I did a lot of DV advocacy work and DV groups, teenage groups.
So tell people what DV is, just in case they were uncertain.
So DV is domestic violence.
Okay, thank you.
And 9 out of 10 times when we spoke about domestic violence, it always came back to they were abused as a child.
Mm-hmm.
It was either that they were mentally, verbally abused by a parent, made to feel less than, or it could have been sexual abuse or physical abuse. And it was always a circle. You know, that's what we call the cycle of abuse, right?
Right.
And that was my biggest thing that I wanted to do. And I did it for a long time and I loved it. We moved to Jersey and I didn't really see any opportunities to do that there, but I did join an amazing team and they will always be my team and I will always love them. And they were the Woodbridge CV group. We would all take shifts and we worked in conjunction with the police department. And when a victim was able to come in to the police department and say, I'm in a DV situation and I need help. And we would go down and we would advocate for them and we would sit down and talk to them 1 to 12 hours, whatever it took.
Wow.
Some went ahead and filed temporary orders of protection and we would help them through that process, you know, give them all the resources they needed, all the information that they needed, really go into depth about the safety plans of what they needed, if they needed to go to a shelter, if they needed temporary housing for a night, just to be away from that person. And that was really amazing work, very humbling work to see. You know, of course, at times it can be triggering, but you have to learn how to separate yourself, separate your personal from what's in front of you. I had been told by a friend maybe 15, 16 years ago, she said, you should be a doula. Like, what the heck is that? And she goes, you know, it's a birthing support person. So I was thinking in my head, oh, what a Lamaze and the breathing. Like, I don't know what you're even talking about. And I had done some research here and there, but my head was really in the game of supporting my family and doing what I had to do. So we moved down here and I worked remotely from here to train my replacement. I did 6 months unemployment. I'm trying to figure, like, what do I want to be when I grow up?
Right.
What do I want to do? You know, I'm 46 years old now, and I think I just kind of figured out what I want to be when I grow up. And my wife said, hey, listen, I need to talk to you when I get home from work. I said, okay. And she said, check your email real quick. I checked my email, and she had got me a membership for a doula training.
Wow.
And she said, this is what you're going to do.
I have goosebumps from head to toe.
Yeah.
That is so, oh my gosh.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to do it.
Oh my gosh. I remember I had to fight my ex-husband to be able to do it. And we were in the middle of a divorce. Yeah. Wow. I'm so thrilled for you. That makes my heart so happy.
Yeah. She's like my biggest fan many times.
And you need that as a birth worker.
Yeah.
You need a supportive partner.
Yes.
A supportive spouse.
You do.
Your children. It impacts them. And so that's wonderful. I'm just celebrating that.
Yeah. My kids kind of got used to me being away for a couple hours at a time because I worked a gajillion hours. In accounting, you can be working to 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
You know, them growing up, I had to work 2 and 3 jobs sometimes just to have a roof over our head.
Yeah.
So they kind of knew it. So then when it went into the fact that, like, wait, mommy's helping people. And whenever I had a public speaking engagement that I was speaking my truth, I would ask them, do you want to come? You don't have to come, but do you want to come? And they would wind up coming, you know, and they'd be like, I'm proud of you, mommy, and whatever. And that led my 21-year-old to be like, he's an advocate through and through. Makes me super proud.
Yeah.
He's very much for inclusivity and queer rights and people getting it together, and very much for Black Lives Matter and for everything, you know, and he tries everything in his power to make people understand. And he told me one day, he said, Mommy, you cannot force people to be educated. You cannot break your neck. He
Mm.
said, you throw it out there, you let them know. He said, and whether they want to admit it or not, you put that seed in their head.
Mhm.
And the next time they speak a line of ignorance, it'll leave a little tinge in their heart. Like, dang it, that wasn't very nice of what I just said.
Yeah. Out of the mouth of babes, huh?
Yeah. I did a little bit of research, and it said the best way to go into the field was to contact local birth networks. And so I went ahead and that's what I did. And Volusia County Birth Network
Mm-hmm.
and some really awesome sister doulas were just like, hey, reach out to this person and reach out to that person and speak to this person. And one doula that I love very much, her name is Mary, and she said, here's all my contracts, here's all my paperwork, look it over, this is what you need to do. Whatever you need, whatever questions you have. And that's what it should be. It should be a community.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this a million times, and I will say this 1,000,001 times. In birth, there's no room for ego. There's just no space for it.
Yeah.
We should all be in community to help one another. It should not be like, oh, there's a competition. There's no competition. There's a quadrillion million birthing families. We should all be helping one another.
Mm-hmm.
And my same beautiful Mary said to me, hey, there's a free birth assistant training going on in Winter Garden at this place called the Birthplace.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, I could do free. Yeah. And she said, it's kind of far from you. And I said, I'll do it. And I was trained, and that was the very first birth that I saw was during a training. And I instantly fell in love. My heart exploded because birth to me is so pure and so beautiful. And having that circle, being within that birthing circle is so powerful. And it's instance of like, everyone's so focused
Mm-hmm.
on this birthing parent
Mm-hmm.
and this new existence that's coming into the world. And nothing else in the world exists at that moment.
Yes, yes, that's part of why I love birth.
Yeah.
Exactly that. Exactly that. And as you're telling that story, my mind is flashing back to the very first birth I attended at the birthplace as a birth assistant, training with Jenny and Robin Maddox. And I'd already been a doula, but I remember just taking it all in and then weeping
Mm-hmm.
at the beauty of it. And how well the mamas were treated
Mm-hmm.
and how sacred it was.
Yes.
That's been, my God, how long? 18 years maybe
Mm-hmm.
or so.
I cry at every
I don't
birth.
know.
I'm the biggest baby.
Mm-hmm.
I can't help it. I'm like, oh my God, so beautiful.
It is. It is.
I stood there for a year, and then I started feeling a little guilt, like financially for my family,
Mm-hmm.
and amongst other reasons. And
Yeah.
I said, okay, I think my season is a little over here. And I had a whole bunch of doula births in between as well. But I felt a responsibility to my family, and I went back into corporate, and I was miserable.
Mm.
You know, the birth world was calling me back constantly. And
Yeah, and
then,
isn't it sad? I'm interrupting
yeah.
you, I'm sorry,
Mm-mm.
but isn't it sad that as birth workers, especially when we have a heart to really serve families, no matter what their circumstances, that we have to make a choice between
Yes.
being able to support our families
Mm-hmm.
and doing what we love,
Mm-hmm.
because it can be hard.
Yeah.
You know, I've supported my children as a single mom for years doing birth work, and we have lived very frugally.
Yeah.
And I had a big awareness because I do have such a heart. And I had an awareness that birth, it takes such a toll on your family.
Yes.
Missing birthdays, missing holidays, leaving for days. I mean, I remember once I was gone 72 hours as a single mom. And realizing that it also puts a financial sacrifice on your families when we have this heart to really serve families and want to keep our prices affordable and be able to meet families' needs. But sometimes a lot of people really do value what we do. And then other time there's people that don't understand what all is involved in it.
They're just like, what do you mean you walked away from almost 3-figure salary to watch babies be born? What are you talking about? Are you crazy? And I'm like, yeah, I guess I am. If that's your perspective of seeing things, then I guess, yeah, I am. And I'm very proud to be a crazy, wild woman. I'd rather be barefoot, earthing outside, thinking about like how I can help this family or that family than being stuck behind a desk, unhappy, unfulfilled, you know? And I have no regrets at all. I think this, not that I think, I know that this is the best decision that I have ever made. And my wife is just like, as a family, we worked together while I did 6 years of college and while I got my master's degree. Now is your time. Now you do what you need to do.
That brings tears to my eyes.
You know?
I'm so grateful for you and for our Central Florida families.
Yeah.
That you can do what your heart is called to do.
It's a beautiful, beautiful experience to be able to serve all families, all birthing families, all birthing people, because not everyone who is birthing is a family.
True.
You have people who are birthing because, you know, they're like, okay, I'm going to birth, but I'm going to give my child up for adoption, or I'm birthing for the sole purpose of being a surrogate. And that birthing person needs support as well. You know, I've been here at Heart to Heart since November, and Heart to Heart in Sanford. I almost walked away from birth work, and I came here because I was still, like, a lot of my doula sisters were like, don't you dare, don't do it. And I'm like, guys are so silly, stop it. And they're like, no, we need you, we love you, we want you here. Families need you. And I'm like, huh? What are you even talking about? And it so happened, you know, here goes another friend of mine. And hey, I think Heart to Heart is looking for a birth assistant. And I reached out to Diane Albright, midwife.
Yes.
And I was like, hey, Diane, I know that you're working over there. Are you guys really looking for a birth assistant? She goes, oh, yeah, okay, hold on. I'm coming tomorrow for an interview. And I landed here, and I've never left. And I love it here. You know, I absolutely love it here. Michelle gives everyone room to grow and to build and to learn. It's a huge sense of family here. I love all my sister birth assistants, and all of us are doulas as well. I love all my midwives here. And I would say in June, middle of June, I started the Birthing Advocacy Doula Trainings program.
Yes.
Which is the online full spectrum training with Sabia Wade. And
yes, I've been hearing about it.
Sabia is amazing. Love you, Sabia. I love Sabia. And full spectrum doula is, we learn about every aspect of being a doula. The Birthing Advocacy Doula trainings are socially conscious, culturally appropriate, diverse, and action-oriented. not only do they train full spectrum birth workers to serve their clients using the best practices available, they also include a deep understanding of disparities, inequalities, policies, rights, and necessary steps to be a partner in the movement to change the current birth environment locally, nationally, and globally. And when I read that for the first time, I was like, whoa, yeah. Because I have always wanted to take my advocacy work and mix it with my birth work. I just was not sure how or why or how I could do it. By the end of this, I'll be a trained professional who provides emotional and physical and informational support. Another beautiful thing that they stand on is they provide care, choice, and justice. And that's so important, right?
Yeah.
They provide advocacy on every level for marginalized groups that our current system doesn't protect, such as people of color, queer and trans people. We're in a pretty scary situation right now that some of the abortion rights are trying to be taken away. Who advocates for those people? Who advocates for the people who I need to do this and I need somebody to support me? Why can't they get support? So this course is so important to me, and I'm so glad that I found this course and that Sabia kind of fell into my universe because she's unapologetically her, and we're learning so much. I'm learning so much all the time. The first week was about activism and birth, and then the second week was about Black maternal infant disparities. And that was very interesting because one of our assignments was to find the current statistics on Black maternal infant mortality. I could not, for the life of me, find anything current.
Wow.
The earliest study I found was 2018 by Healthy Start, and it would not give specific numbers. It only gave a certain ratio or, 386, and there was no definitive solid answer. And that was a study done in 2018. What happened to 19? What happened to 2020? I know they can't do 2020 because 2020 has not finished. What happened to last year? We still have these birthing people dying. We had one in Brooklyn. We had one that just passed away. Come on, what are we doing? And I know very much that hospital, that mom died in Brooklyn. When I lived in Brooklyn, and that hospital, we used to call it Wood Hell Hospital. Okay. It was like an undiscussed discussion of, if you get ill, do not go to that hospital.
Yeah.
And in all actuality, they killed that mom. They knew that she had high blood pressure and they refused to help her. It's very sad what happened to that family. You have the mom who she was putting her whole journey on Instagram and she just passed away.
Oh, yes. I saw that.
Come on.
Nicole Thea?
Yeah, Nicole Thea. And then you have Shasia Washington. When does this stop? Why in the United States of America we have these mothers dying at alarming rates? Alarming rates.
People are shocked when you tell them that the United States has
highest rate.
Yeah, in the industrialized world.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're the lowest for the outcomes of the industrialized world.
Yeah, It's ridiculous. We have Shaisha, who passed away in Woodhull Hospital or Woodhull Hospital, whichever you want to call it. And that was a couple weeks ago. And now we have this other mother who just passed away. What does that even mean? Like, what in the world are we doing? What are we doing? It shouldn't be that way. You know, in my doula work, I've worked with a lot of undocumented families, and to see what they go through in the hospitals was very unsettling for me.
Mm-hmm.
And having them being afraid to speak out because they were scared of, like, I don't want to say anything because if I say something, what if they call immigration on me?
Mm-hmm.
And meanwhile, you just been through birth trauma. You were just, your body was just vandalized. That is the best way to say it.
Yeah.
And they will not speak up.
Yeah.
Because they are afraid. So that's where this training comes in with my birth work. And I want to be able to be the voice for the voiceless, you know. And there's ways you could be very diplomatic and still kind of like, hey, that's not right. Let's not do that. And education is key. So if I could educate whatever family it is that I'm working with on their rights, on every single right that they have as an individual going into a hospital setting, whatever setting it is that they choose to birth, whether it be home birth center, a hospital, wherever it is, but giving them those rights and letting them know, this is your right, this is your right, this is your right, this is your right. You can say no to this, you can say no to that. You are not obligated to anything. You know, and using the BRAIN acronym for them and letting them know everything that they need to be educated on. I'm very much big on every single family deserves support.
Mm-hmm.
And I most all the time offer either sliding scale or on donation basis with my families. Let's talk about what you can pay. This is what my price is, but how much can you really pay? And that's for the families that really, really need it, you know, that need that scale and that price point.
Because there are families that do.
Yes, they do. Tons. There are tons, you know, and I give everyone the same exact care, you know. And then too, being an old school Boricua mom, I'm gonna feed everybody. I'm gonna take care of everybody because that's what I do. I mother my father, you know, because that's how I am, and I love it. Being able to do this work has been healing on another level of my healing process. It has been very healing. Just to see the good in people has always been one of my things because I've seen so much ugly, right?
Right.
I've experienced so much ugly, and to see the goodness in certain people and see the beauty in certain people has been very rewarding.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like that cycle. So, and I've been blessed enough to be able to be connected with all amazing birth workers, you know, and make connections with really amazing birth workers. And it gives me a really sense of pride. And at times, sometimes it's a little intimidating. You know, when you had emailed me about me coming on here, I was like, how in the world does she know me? You know, I was like, oh my gosh, okay.
I've been following your work.
And I appreciate that. A lot of us, we don't do this for acknowledgement and things like that, but it's always beautiful and it's always nice to feel appreciated or to be seen and to know you're being heard.
Yeah. That's so important.
It is.
It's so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you are up to some really, really vital and so needed things.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
You and I feel, talk about things that people aren't always willing or ready to hear about.
Exactly. I'm a firm believer in if it makes someone uncomfortable, that means you got your point across, because there's motion in being uncomfortable. It's impactful. So if what I'm saying makes people like, I don't really want to talk about that, but let me just listen a little bit more.
Don't you think you can do it in a loving way?
Of course.
Can be done in a loving way. And that's what
Yep.
I have been doing my
And
best
that's what
to
I do all the time.
Yeah, and I feel like you do as well, to share it in a loving way, a compassionate way. Let's open our minds and let's listen, really listen.
It's very important.
And a lot of people just don't know how to listen. We're not even really taught how to listen well.
And I think there's also an aspect that I tell my birthing families all the time, when they're like, thank you so much. And I always tell them, thank you, because you have given me the space and the privilege and the honor to be within your most sacred time.
Yes.
You don't know me from a can of paint. You know nothing about me. All you know is you see this little hippie lady with a long skirt and crazy hair and talking about, can I have a heart hug, and just trying to love up on you. And half of the time I'm barefoot.
I don't wear shoes either.
Yeah. And, they're just like, this woman is just like so odd. But at the end of the day, they realize that I have their best intentions at heart. And I'm so appreciative of all my families that have come into my world and that they've allowed me into their world. I still have some families with 3 years down the road, and they still send me pictures of the babies, and I still talk to the families, and I still wish them happy birthday. And, I'm still like, I'm super proud of you. And seeing them evolve from where was our very first consultation to where they're at now, it's amazing. It's amazing to be witness.
Isn't it?
To this.
Yeah. Yeah. Some of my families, their babies are 17.
Yeah.
18. Even older. It's amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. And when they send you pictures or give you updates and you see how they're growing, it's just incredible.
It's beautiful.
It really is. So if you had a pearl of wisdom, something that you really want to leave the listeners with, what would that be?
It would be, even in times that you feel you're alone, you're not alone. And at any point in time in your life where you're feeling as if you're a victim, don't feel that way. You're a survivor, because every single day you wake up and go take one foot in front of the other, you're surviving and you're excelling and you're a warrior. I'm very much into warrior speech. I'm very much into stand in your power. As a doula, I always want my families to know, and any birthing person in this universe to know, like, even if you're a quadrillion miles away from me, call me at 1 o'clock in the morning. I'll talk you through it. I got you. Because there was a point in time where I felt that way, and there was a stranger who didn't know me from a can of paint, and they helped me. So why wouldn't I give that forward? I know how it feels. Everything is temporary, and this too shall pass. we're all mighty and great in our own way. No one is greater than another person.
That brought tears to my eyes. I can feel the sincerity and the power beneath those words.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you for being who you are and taking on this difficult work, because a lot of the work that you do is difficult. There's the beautiful, beautiful parts, but you stand where many people don't want to or are afraid to.
And I will always stand there. I will never give up, ever. Even if people don't understand it, and that's okay, because someone else does.
Yeah.
One more thing I wanted to add is that I'm working in conjunction with Safe House.
Oh, yes.
With Michelle Jewett. And very soon we're going to be having a webinar within the next month or so. I'm aiming towards the end of August for a webinar for birth workers, knowing the signs and safety measures and resources for domestic violence, because we need to keep ourselves safe as well when it comes to the families. And I learned that from being in the Woodbridge group, and it's very important so we can know. Sometimes we don't really, we're like, is that person in a situation or not? And there has to be a matter of diplomacy when speaking. You cannot sit there in a room with a person and another person and ask that person, are you now or have you ever been in an abusive relationship?
That makes me crazy.
What in the world?
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Have you lost your mind?
Yeah.
Because now you're going to put that other person, if that other person is the abuser, on alert.
Yep.
And that person's like, you said something. You said something to someone, or someone said something to this doctor or this midwife, and they know what's going on behind closed doors. And you're putting that person at risk. Or if that person is not at a point in their life where they have the capacity of unpacking their trauma, why would you do that? There has to be, just like language inclusivity, there has to be better ways that we can speak. Define the terminology. There has to be.
So what would your suggestion be?
A one-on-one conversation of just kind of getting a little history and allowing that person to share on their own without pushing the envelope. And also, if you are equipped with the knowledge of the signs, which I will let Michelle to really get into it because she's the expert. I've been doing this for 16, 17 plus years, but someone who is deep within the shelter system and sees people coming in every single day, in and out, she's going to be able to really give that comprehensive list of the signs of what you can see, whether it be a nervous tick, whether it be like a smile that's not quite a smile, a random bruise in a random place. Because they're not going to hit you in your face where people can see. You're going to have random bruises on your back, your arms, your legs, and just become more aware and educated. Like I said before, education is key. We have a responsibility to ourselves and to these families to be as educated as we can.
Yes. Yeah, that sounds so important. I'm there. Sign me up.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you so much, and I thank you so very much.
Oh, my honor. My honor. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that? So
I'm on Facebook. On Facebook, my business name is Caridad, Caridad Birth Doula Services. And also on Instagram, the same way.
Okay.
And they can always IM me. They can message me. They can call me. They can email me because my email is on my page, and I will always answer back. You know, even if it's just like, hey, I have a question. I'm not quite sure if I want a doula, but I have a question. We can talk. Let's have that conversation. Also on my Facebook page, my phone number is there, so you can also text me. I live in Deltona, Florida, but I travel 30 miles in any radius to help any family, and I do a lot of virtual work as well. So that's where I could be found.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for this time.
Thank you.
And thank you for the work that you're doing, for the love that you're spreading,
Thank you.
for the compassion, for seeing people for who they really are.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It means a lot to me.
You're welcome. So welcome. And thank you, families, for taking the time to listen to this very, very important conversation. Thank you for opening your hearts, your minds, and making a stand for people everywhere.
Thank you.
For more great conversations like these, or to find out more information and access Michelle's library of amazing guests, go to birtheaseservices.com/podcast. For more information on the Birthease method, Michelle's classes, meditations, and other services, go to birtheaseservices.com.